All right, everybody. Hope you guys are having a wonderful day so far. I'm sorry that you're not feeling well, Pensy. That makes me sad. I hope you recover really fast. It doesn't last very long. Get lots of rest, of course, whenever you can. What we're going to be doing today is I'm going to be working on the VGen commission again that I have for my beautiful wife Havoc. I've made some really good progress, so we're getting there. So let me go ahead and hop on over here. Oh, I gotta turn on my model. Ha ha ha. And I gotta take away my little chair. I don't really need that. One sec, guys. I'm sorry. I got sloppy. Oh my goodness, if it'll let me. Oh, why are you locked up? Hold on. Sorry. Let me. What is it doing? Connect, start. The heck? It's like locked up. Give me one sec here, guys. I can't even click on anything else. I can click on that. There we go. Okay, that's out of the way, but I do want to. You know what? Fuck it. We're gonna leave the chair. It's fine. It's fine. I don't feel like messing with it. So, yeah, as you can see, I did a lot of work on off stream on this. I think it's looking pretty good. So I'm on to the black parts, like the pants, the gloves, and the black parts of the jacket. So let me go ahead and start working on that. Thanks. I'm getting there. I like that all the things that I'm learning are coming through for me here. So makes me happy. You know, always striving to improve, or at least at the very least, make things like a little more efficient if possible. So we're gonna do this, and we're gonna have a slightly darker, slightly more saturated color here for the shadows. Like that. I'm gonna lower the opacity so I can see. Oh, we got some. I got it on the choker too that I need to do. Okay. No worries. I can do all of this. She does have a butt. I made sure that she had a butt. It was very important that she indeed had cheeks. That was also a specific request from Havoc, so I was like, I'm your guy. I got you. Aniki, drawer of butts. It's like, say less words. Actually, this needs to be a little more straight. So we're going to put that back on there. Like that. And we can do where like the little folds are here. And that kind of looks a little sloppy down here, so let's go ahead and fix that up. god, my cat is losing his mind. Just being absolutely insane. I don't know what his little kitty problem is. He's probably upset because I went downstairs and he wasn't allowed to come down because they're for other kitties that he doesn't get along with, so he can't behave himself. Get this a little blur. Some of these places here. Let's make sure that we have some a little bit more definition here between the knuckles and the bones in the hands. So I'm going to add some dark back in there. There we go. Got that. I'll try my best to make sure that where I have the light sources here kind of like line up where they are on the rest of the body. Of course, we're going to have the shadow from the actual head itself. Let's go ahead and block that back in. And there's a little bit of a ridge here, so I want to make sure we still have that. Put a little bit of some areas for some bounce light in here. Since shadows are generally not all like 100% solid, so there's going to be areas where it's going to be lighter, where there's going to be some colors and lighting that shows through. This also helps like make sure that the form of what you're trying to do here is not like lost. Make sure I save this a bunch. I want to make sure. Oh, okay, I have it on the goggles and everything else. Okay, so I gotta make sure I do this as one coherent piece here, so. Want to make sure there's lots of like high contrast, of course, on the metal parts. So like on her goggles and stuff here. We're gonna have like very apparent highlights. Yeah, I can see that. So, even though I like Palia, they don't always have like the best options for like outfits and whatnot, especially with their color choices. Like the dev team has picked very like I would just have to say that I think the dev team is full of like earth signs with like the kind of like color combinations and choices that they choose. So it's kind of difficult to come up with like really cute outfits, but it's not like it's impossible. There's a lot of like earth tones and like browns and greens and all that kind of thing. Oh yeah, no, Catwoman's great. Don't get me wrong. The goggles are cute. Oops, I gotta remember to do the little leather strap here. Streams. I like this song. This song's really cool. I love the music video because the music video is like gangsters versus like clowns for some reason, and they're just like in this big scuffle. I don't know why. It's really funny. Oh yeah, I know you love DC. It is Fluorescent Adolescent from the Arctic Monkeys. Yeah, it's. I think the music video actually makes it like even better. It's very silly. I was like super surprised when I found out that this band was still making music. They're called Seven Dust. I used to listen to Seven Dust all the time when I was young. Nice. Hell yeah. It's pretty entertaining. It's very silly. I like silly, especially in music videos. That's why I love like the Foo Fighters music videos because they're always like really, really silly. Oops. Help if I had the right tool selected. Eh. Oh, that's why. I was like, why is it showing me these weird tools? I don't know these tools. Alright, so the jacket is a softer material, so I gotta keep that in mind here. You know, the main thing, of course, when you're doing your shading and when you're doing your lighting, you have to keep in mind the texture of the material and like it how it handles the light. So you know, if it's a softer material, you want like bigger, like rounder edges that are going to be softer. So I'm going to use more of like the airbrush here to get the carving of it out on the jacket parts because they're softer. Not as high contrast as like say the parts that are like, you know, possibly like leather or something like that. So yeah, keep that in mind. Oh, nice. I haven't owned a CD in a very long time. Mostly because not only the whole like advent of like being able to like you know stream your music, but just because there's like physically no space for them. Like even when I did own CDs, I had trouble keeping them in like good condition enough that they would not skip like crazy. It was just like incredibly difficult to keep them from getting scratched, and it was like really annoying. Especially if like you're trying to switch them out in the car while you're driving, it's like, you know, I do not miss that like whatsoever. Oh yeah, no, I mean, I at least I do miss like you know having like the art and stuff that comes with them and like the album covers and all that. I think that's like really cool to kind of like look back, but uh, you know, they were just some of my belongings I had trouble keeping in a decent state, so I don't miss that aspect of it. It's like even that with like games, like it was really difficult to keep them from getting scratched. But then again, Walmart used to take merchandise back, like no matter how old it was. So sometimes if my discs got scratched up too much, I'd be like, "Oh man, like I got this game and it's all scratched." And since like Walmart just like did not give a shit, they would just like let me exchange it for a new one. So I was like, I'll be damned if I'm this game's gonna be ruined forever and I can't play it. So Is it ethical? That's a gray area. But you know what? Walmart's a big scummy corporation, so I don't feel quite as bad about it. Just sit back, just sit back. Hey, what's up, Nofa? Good call. Let me get some water. Let me save. Boom. I love the way the tummy came out. I think it turned out really nice. It looks smexy. Yeah. I have the approval from my wife, which makes me super happy that I am on the right track. Hey, I feel you enough. I usually wake up about an hour before stream, so I can get ready. Gives me time to like make a bowl of oatmeal and make some coffee, you know, that kind of thing. Alright, make sure there's some little shadows here where the hand will kind of cast. That, and then this will have shadow, so let me put it back in. make sure I get these big shapes here. Oops. Get the seam. That doesn't really work there. How about put some dark back into it right there? I think that would look better. Luckily, the pants only need to be like subtle here, so we don't have to spend a massive amount of time on them. Especially since it's not really the focal point here. Cool, got that. I think I want some texture, more texture on the clothing here, so we're going to work that out in just a sec. It's be a little bit more challenging since I put all the black on one layer, so that's okay, we can figure it out. We can make it work. I think I like putting like kind of like these textures on like some parts of the clothing, like just to show that they don't have like they don't have like a perfect kind of you know, they get weathered sometimes. That, and let's do brightness to opacity, and then get it off the glows because I don't want it there. And I'm going to lower this opacity down so it's just kind of barely visible. It'll show up a little bit later when we go to do like our tone adjustments. So, all right, let's see. And I need to find the same material up here that I had for the hood part. I remember I had to go way the hell down in here to find that, so. I probably should have kept it as like a separate like layer so I could just go back to it immediately. But no, I had to go ahead and merge things, so that's alright. I'm pretty sure I know what it was, so just as long as it still looks soft is all we really need anyway, so just like a faint idea of it being a softer material. That's why I love all these like free resources in Clip Studio Paint, because you can use things in a lot of like different ways. Like I love using like these image materials as ways to like add texture, or you know, if I don't want to straight up draw like a sky, I can literally just pull a sky into the background and then, you know, do my own thing, of course, to make it look like it fits my art style. But you know, saves me some time. Sometimes like effects can be done that way too, which is really cool. Alright, I think it was one of these. I think I used this one. So let's bring it up here. And it's kind of hard to see. Let me zoom in and make sure it's even showing up here. Yeah, kinda. I'll just have to make sure that it doesn't transfer onto the other materials, so I'll erase that away. And I'm also going to convert it to a color layer, so it's not just like a gray over top. Doesn't look good. Straight up gray like that will like really dull your image. So alright, so not on the pants, not on the gloves, so let me get those out of here. Also not on these parts. Everywhere else is fine. And I'm going to bring the opacity down to 20%. When we go to do our like tone adjustments, they'll show up a little bit more, but it'll make those areas like softer basically. So now for like the leather parts, I need a more like high contrast texture here. Might even have like a leather texture somewhere in here. It's like, you know, even if things are like stylized, you can still like have like a semi realism when it comes to like your texturing. So you just gotta make sure, of course, that it's like real subtle and that you don't like overdo it. But if you don't like distinguish your materials from each other, they all kind of end up looking like they're plastic, especially with like digital art, and you don't want that. You know, when something looks like hyper digital, it's because somebody hasn't taken the time to, you know, render their materials like any different from each other. Like skin should not look like cloth or leather, like texture wise. You know what? I can actually search in here. Leather. I have a brush, not a image material. That's okay. I just need something that has a little bit of a more recognizable texture to it. So let me grab something out of here. That's a metal texture. I don't really want that. Let's see what we got in here. Starry monochrome, film grain. Static but extra contrasted. That might work. Ooh, this one looks better. Scribbles. Here we go. Because like leather kind of has like a scratchiness almost to it with the way it looks. So I think that'll work out. And I see it's applying over the whole thing, so I'm gonna have to go in and delete where it's not supposed to be. But that's okay. I could do that. It's not a big deal. Alright, cool. It is... I just need to rasterize it. And then I'm going to turn it to brightness. And then just erase away where it's not supposed to be. So, not on the jacket at all. Oops, shit, I do need it on the neck there, though. Hold on, let me make sure I not delete that. So delete that. And then not on the pants either. Get rid of it down there. Get rid of that non-converted layer. There we go. Now I can see better. Hell yeah. And then also not on the glasses. Oh, or the metal part here, this. I don't think these are leather right here. I think they're metal. So we're going to put a metal texture on those. Erase, bro. Why are you not erasing that? Oh, I'm on the wrong layer. Actual dummy status. Now let's bring that down to 20%. Like normally I would do these like on separate layers, but for the sake of time lately, I feel like doing this all the same kind of colors has been fine doing it on a single layer. So, all right, well, let's get metal texture up here on these. Let me see where it's applying. Ooh, it's applying almost exactly where I need it to. Hell yeah. And I need some down here too on this, so what I'll do is I'll make it nice and big and then I'll just erase away the places I don't need it. So, off there, and off all this stuff, go away. Make sure none of it got on the clothing. Oops. I don't want it on the leather part here, but I did want it on the locket because the locket is also metal. If I miss a little bit of this, it'll be okay. I don't think that's going to cause any problems. Alright, good enough. That, so let's turn that to brightness. And also down to 20%. And I think we can leave the glasses looking like they're a little bit more plastic because they probably are, so. Alright, cool. Alrighty, so let's do some lighting. this, and then, oh wait, I like to put a little bit of like a color around where the shadows and the lights go, so let's go ahead and do that. And I'm going to do that as kind of like the kind of like snowy reflective color. We're going to do that. Another one. Another one. I don't know, I just think it looks more interesting when you do this, when you add a little bit of... It's kind of like a Terminator, but not really. This is more just like an artistic choice on my part. A little bit bigger on these bigger areas, more surface here. Plus it's like a softer material, so say if this wasn't affected the light, there would be a lot more diffusion. It's either like the thickness and the softness of the material, so. Oh god, I remember that. I saw that match. I was a big like Anderson Silva fan when I was watching MMA, and then watching his shin like flop around with his foot, I was just like, ugh. Like Jesus Christ. That sucks so bad. I haven't really kept up with it at all lately, so I have no idea what's going on with that. I got tired of paying for like pay-per-views. They were like $60, $70 a pop, and I was just like, And then like my friends like stopped like contributing, so I was like, I'm not gonna pay for this by myself. So, but it was like the only sport that I like actively was watching for a while. I'm not like a big sports guy, so I'd rather be like actually actively doing that sport than watch it. So I'm not being like an armchair warrior like some people. So looking at you guys, boomers. Oh, if I was on the team, dude, you wouldn't even make it. Not even close. Don't even act like you're part of this team. Oh my god, my pressure started to freak out there. Alright, got that. So let's go ahead and we'll reduce the opacity so it's a nice subtle effect. Now we're going to invert the selection here so we can actually start doing the lighting aspect of it. I'm going to start with an overlay layer, I think. And again, I'm going to use like the bounce light of the snow for the lighting. I think would work well for the darker parts of it. So I'm just going to kind of try to control it as much as I can here so it doesn't get like too crazy. Is it actually doing what I want? Yeah, it is. It's just not. Okay, I need to make it lighter. You know what? Let's go ahead and do this. That worked a lot better. And then I can just control things from there. I can start like adding in like maybe some other things that are around in the environment colors, like, you know, maybe there's some, well, in Palia I know for sure there are bushes around this area, so I can put a little bit of green in here. Of course, some of the leaves will have some oranges to them, so I can kind of throw that in there. Here, some yellows, and then I also have a bit of a warm light that I have on this too, so I'm gonna go ahead and include that on the peaks of the form at least, so it's nice and consistent, especially around here in the face. Oh, poor Pensy. I'm sorry you're not feeling well. So we're going to lower the opacity. I'm going to deselect, duplicate, do hard light, and we're going to blur that so it bleeds over. And I think I'm actually going to turn the opacity down even more. And we'll do an add glow. And we're going to make that 5% because it doesn't need to be that harsh. So let's see. Now we can start like doing some like adjustments. So I'm gonna do an overlay here. Oh my god, when is that? That's obnoxious. Sorry about that. Like I said, my music's on shuffle here, so sometimes it's gonna have some pretty random stuff. Oh man, it's toasty in this room. Alright, so make this a little darker down here, just so it's not so like, you know, it's not really taking away from the focal area, which is more up here. So we're just going to kind of add some darkness back into it. I'm going to start reinforcing some of the shadows as well. Some of the cast shadows from the clothing itself here. Because we lost some of that, so we want to make sure that we bring that back in. In fact, I'm going to do some of that down here with the folds. That away. A little bit more contrast back in the pants. We're even going to say that around here below the knee, the light drops off. And let's get the shadow cast, of course, from there. These will cast some shadows as well. You know, you always want to make sure you go through and make sure that your lighting and your light source make sense. You know, things are looking a little like kind of like artificial or off in certain areas. Make sure you give it a little bit more like extra attention. So I'm using an overlay layer with like a really saturated, really dark hue. That way we get some more lighting and contrast back here into the clothing. I think that looks a little more believable down there. And let's get some here on this, because this will have a cast shadow as well. I'm going to blur it a little bit right through here. This is a softer material. And then let's get, trying to see how this will kind of like this here. We'll have like a shadow there from the little dangle part. Doesn't have to be exactly the way it would be in real life, but close. We're just aiming for close here. I'm gonna make that have more contrast in there. And let's see. So some of this also needs it too. So kind of get some of these folds. That. Blur them a little bit in some of these spots. Yeah, I might play that one, or I might wait till the old one goes on sale, because I like the way that one looks, personally. Plus, like, I don't really play like Souls-like games. I was having a conversation with Cacho last night about this, about how, you know, it's a little bit more difficult for me to get into like Souls games because they are just like insanely difficult, and for me that's not always like an enjoyable experience. But I'd be willing to, like, give it a shot, especially if it's not me just being frustrated by myself. Like if you guys are watching, having a good time watching me flail. Trying to put some more contrast to back into the leather areas, so we definitely need that. So they're gonna have like high contrast shadows. Again, we want to really make sure that we're hammering in the differences in textures. Makes it like way more believable. Helps you with like value separation as well. Let's get this inside line here where there's a seam. Oops. A little bit of spots here where there be some tension. Besto friendo. Yeah, I would probably start with Yakumo as well, because I think you said that he has like defensive, like blood codes. So I feel like that would be useful for a Souls-like game. Not getting hit like by a fucking truck all the time would be nice. Oops, got some. Let's give the glasses a good amount of contrast here. Try to have some detail here because it's the face, which is the focal point. Let's go ahead and actually just fill that in right there. I think that'll be good. we go. That's... And definitely need some stuff on here to kind of like sell the fact that it's metal. Fingers there. Let's make sure that there's some shadowing from that. And you don't have to like zoom in and go like, you know, super crazy with details. Like, chances are most people are not going to be doing that, but I kind of like doing like little things that help sell the believability of the materials at least. Even if no one sees them, I know they're there. I know that I did a cool thing, so that makes me feel satisfied. So that's what's important, really. You know, that I did like 100% of like what I could do. So, hey, Cacho, how's it going? I was just telling everybody how we were talking about Souls games last night. Maybe one of these days I'll grab like Elden Ring or something like that. That's like, you know, Souls like, but I feel like I could probably handle it a little bit better, just because of like the open world format of it. So I have somewhere to run away when shit gets rough, as it inevitably will. But yeah, this is my wife's Palia OC Nemazine. Yeah, I know a lot of people really like it, so I don't know. I'm not like too much of a glutton for uh like I like a challenge, but you know, sometimes when that challenge is almost like kind of like an artificial challenge, you know what I mean? Like it's just unfair just to be unfair, not because it's actually like, you know, difficult, like hiding shit like out of your view and like getting one shot as you come around the corner and then having to go back and try to figure out how the hell to pick up your XP and stuff. Like, I don't know. It's just not really what I would call an enjoyable experience. But I tried to play Bloodborne because my friend let me borrow it one time, and I got so mad. I don't know if I just have a skill issue. It is possible, you know. I'm not claiming to be like some sort of gaming god that, you know, doesn't like make mistakes. So just very frustrating for me. I literally had to hold back like being stubborn and just knowing when to like call it quits so I don't drive myself nuts. Alright, that should be good as far as the reinforcing the shadows. I think I'm gonna turn on the opacity a little bit on them and then build them up from there. Well, actually, you know what? The opacity was actually fine. Let's go ahead and bring it back. I think it's okay. I can also do some kind of like highlights with the same layer. So let's go ahead and do that. That's what's cool about like the overlay layer that I never knew, is that you can use it to emphasize values and kind of control where you want them to be lighter or darker. Really neat. I don't know why I never really picked up on this, that this is how it's like intended to be used. Like I always thought it was just for like fancy glow effects, and I was like, man, this glow effect is like super blown out. I don't know if I want to go that hard on it. But no, I really just had no idea that, you know, you can make it more subtle by, you know, choosing a lesser like opacity when it comes to it. So they basically like if it's lighter and less saturated, it's going to lighten it, uh, and then you know vice versa for the opposite kind of like effects. So you can go back and forth and like clean your values up so you have separation between like objects and textures. Like this is literally being done on the same layer as these dark lines here, which is really cool. Oops. Come on. Scoot over. Thank you. This might need a little more separation of value from that there on the hair. I haven't gotten to the hair yet though. sure that we have the values separated here. So we see that there's a difference. We definitely need it over here on the glove. I think what we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and fill this whole side here. So there's a big separation of value. Let's do that. Man, it's so toasty in my room. I'm sweating. Let's kind of cut out where these fingers are a little bit. I feel like they're being like kind of falling away into the shadow work here, so we can't see the difference between the two. I want to make sure they're still present. Plus this, you know, like a leather material is going to be like very high contrast, so oh yeah, that helps bring out the details a little bit more in there. Oops, got some here in the on the band that keeps her goggles on. There, so we can see that a little bit better. Alright, and the rest of the stuff isn't that high contrast, so I don't think I need to really do it in any other areas. Just the places that are like leather. Actually, this hand down here has leather on it, so let me go ahead and do that. And what's kind of cool about like doing these little like highlight areas is that you don't have to be, you can be like a little bit messy with them and it still looks really nice. And make sure that see that there's a separation there. There we go. It's a lot better. A little bit of a blur though. Just a bit. Hell yeah. But what I also could do is I can kind of lighten this area up a little bit because we got a little bit more light coming through here. Thanks. I do my best. Sometimes I struggle with whether I want something to be like fully cell shaded or if I want it to be like semi realism, that kind of thing. This is a little more semi realism because there's a lot more like blending and but basically what I do is when I do a project, I do 80% of what I know 100%, like my solid skills, and I leave about 20% to do some like wiggle room, some playing. That way, you have time to like you have a little chance to like have fun and also maybe like learn something. So I'm gonna put just really light some of the bounce color of the skin in some of these areas with a normal layer. Well, see, like, the thing with me is like, I do admit, of course, I have good like shading, I have good lighting, but probably my weakest areas are my I really need to work on my fundamentals more. I think that's something that could really take me to like a certified, like more professional like level. Like like perspective. Making sure that anatomy is like correct and makes sense. That kind of stuff. Like just like the basics. Like I'm good at like the flair, but I need to work more on the basics. It's always important not to ignore those because they are extremely valuable and important. And I'm not taking away from like my skill or anything like that. No, like no, I recognize that I have artistic skill. I've just worked really hard to develop it, and part of developing your skill is to be able to recognize your shortcomings and at least have a plan to work on them. So like because your artwork will never like evolve if you just kind of just like leave it as is when you know that there's like things you could like improve on. All right, let's save that. Let's get a gradient map here. So I am a big fan. I don't know why I've always putting like some sort of like really light holographic gradient map. I think gives it a lot of like color variety. So I put it down to like maybe like 20%. And then I mean gradient maps in general are amazing. Once I like learned about them, I was like, holy shit, I'm using these forever. These are amazing. And we're going to turn that down to like 50%. I mean, honestly, like everything I've learned, especially like recently, I just watch YouTube videos of like artists that I believe can like help me out. Like I make sure like even if an artist like puts out an extremely basic tutorial, that I watch it because there might have been something that they do a little bit like even slightly differently that is something that I might not have like thought about or noticed, even if it's something I should have like the knowledge to do already. It's important to basically humble yourself and be like, look, I can always learn. Like I know when I was younger I had trouble like accepting the fact that like my values were like really off. Like it was really difficult to uh, tell different parts of objects from other objects, because I was just not like, I just refused to work on my values. So I'm kind of, that's what I'm also like doing right now is like, I'm zooming like way out and looking, making sure that even when it's like tiny, that it's going to still read as what I intended it to look like. Because this is going to be, most people are going to view this on their cell phone, so it's going to be pretty small. And, before I finish a piece, I always go back through and I adjust the values for like the whole thing as well, just to ensure that I'm like, not missing anything. So that the composition is like 100% clear. And then of course you want to like flip your canvas back and forth to make sure that things are looking good in both directions. All right, I think that's pretty good for those right now. And like eventually I'll go through of course and like merge this all down and do like the rendering on top of it to like fix a lot of different things. So what I'm gonna do, go ahead and merge these parts. And I always do some little finishing touches on these. I give them a little bit of chromatic aberration. Let's do like 30 because it's a pretty big canvas. And then I do a lighten layer on top with some Gaussian blur. And then I lower the opacity of that so it's not like super blurry. Just a slight bit. It just kind of gives it that like little bit more like it's like kind of like an anime like cell, how there's like a little bit of chromatic aberration and there's just a little bit of like kind of like, it's called like bloom, I believe. I think it makes it look nice. Just some of like the finishing things I like to do when I do different parts of things. And this is also like a commission that I don't have like any sort of timeline on, so I can really like, if I want to take a bunch of time on it, I can. Of course, if I get any more commissions in VGen, I'm gonna have to move this along a little bit faster. All right, let's see. Do the hair here. Did I merge that into the hair? I did. Okay. That's fine. So what I think I want to do before I even begin with the shadows, I think I'm going to go ahead and put some of the skinish kind of colors around here, around the face area a little bit, maybe even more saturated than that. Yeah, like that, and then I can lighten it up a little bit as it gets closer here. Like that. I kind of want to put a little bit of color variety through the hair here and there before I go into it. And some of like the little bit of the environmental colors. base color. Then I'm gonna move it a little more towards the purples, I think. So I can do the shadows. Bring down the opacity while I'm working on it. And I like to kind of think of the hair as like, kind of like either leaves or ribbons. You know, so they're like, they have like a 3D form to them. Like even like really stylized hair, you want to make sure there's some sort of form like present to them. Let's add in where the goggle is overlapping up there. And I used to do this the opposite, where I would draw the light in, but now what I do is I put the shadow over the whole section, and then I go in and I take my my selection tool, like my lasso tool, and then I carve out like where I want to carve away the light. And you always want to make the shapes like kind of like similar to the shapes you've already like established that you've already cut out. And sometimes I'll straight up cut it out like I did with this one, and then some areas I'll go in with like my airbrush and just do it like real subtle. And then I can go in and areas where they're supposed to be like a I can go ahead and chop that out. And then I can kind of do it in these spots too, where there would be like some overlapping. I can go back in with that that shadow color again. Make sure that those, like I said, we have like the form still there with the shadows and everything. But you want the most like saturation and like hopefully like lighting around like the most important part of the subject, which is generally going to be the face, unless of course you want to highlight, you know, a completely different part of like your character. Like there's nothing wrong with that, just make sure that those areas are the ones that you know, that are actually like legitimately like highlighted. So why is that not working for me? What is going on here? Do I have something selected? No. Should be able to. Yeah, it's letting me erase away there. Why is it not letting me do anything on the hair there, though? That's weird. Okay. Whatever. I guess I'll work over here then. It's letting me do it for now, and then I'll figure out exactly what's going on with that. Again, you want to make sure it looks like that this is like recessed in here, because it's going to be concave, because that's where the light goes into the eye, is through here, through the irises. So putting like the highlights and whatnot like in the direct center of the eye is not always the way to go. You want it to be offset just a little bit. Oops, I see some spots I gotta fix here. That's okay. Just a little bit, because the light's mostly coming from like the bottom with some bounce lights here. There's actually quite a bit of light right here in this spot, so just to give them at least a little bit of a texture. Alright, so I am going to take an airbrush first to do this. So we get a little bit of the shape of the head here. And then I can go through and do like a band that I cut out. And we're just going to cut little parts of it out here and there. Especially where there's like, it's supposed to be like separations of the hair. You want to go in and chop that little spot out. Make sure it's not all the same shape. His hair is not parallel by any means, ever. Even stylized hair is not, so. I was never into Initial D, but the song is great. My brother was like super into Initial D. I couldn't get past the art style. I was like, those lips are ridiculous. Like, I get it, people have lips, but Jesus Christ. It's like, brother, why do you look like that? Go. Go ahead and cut that out. And then we can take our smudge tool and blend this here and there. Oop, I just totally smacked my camera off my thing. Oh my god. I'm sorry, camera. I didn't mean violence. It just happened. Yeah, you always want to make sure that you have like some sort of like oval, like either oval or circular like areas, excuse me, to show that you know, that's the shape of the head, that it's following that shape. And then also if you do it like even like coming down like to the sides here like this, uh, you know, that can also be used as a way to bring like the focus into the eyes on the face. So again, I'm just going to go through here and I'm going to carve out some spots. And this is going to be a much more subtle one, so I'm going to use my airbrush to do this part here. But it's just kind of a way to like, you can guide the viewer's eye by having things like literally pointing in the direction that you want it to go. All right. So we got that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase away the most near the face, like this, and then it's going to get real subtle as it goes back. Like that. So now we have like a real subtle like guide right to her eyes. And then I can start, now that we have like the big parts here, I can start doing like some detail stuff. Like up here, I feel like we'd have some light hitting. Oops. Like I said, if you can get used to your lasso tool, like it is such an amazing and helpful tool. I'd say it's like probably the one I use the most now to do my artwork. So I'm gonna do a little bit of like a rim light area here, just to kind of separate it from the background. But I'm gonna add this back in as like a little bit of a shadow, and then we're gonna blend it a bit. You can see it's not only me. I also love this band. This band's really good. And I'm just kind of doing like some like subtle differences in the amount of shade that's put there, just so the form is still present. So up here, it's a little too big. kind of do that. And then we can take our, kind of just push it in the right directions here. And then I can add some detail back in right here where there's a separation. I don't know, the main thing with hair is not to do like each individual like tiny piece, but to really like treat it like it's a big solid like shape, like a 3D form. Like at the end you can go in and you can add just like little subtle hints that there's, say, hair shooting in different directions, but you don't want to rely on that as the main way to like show the form of the hair. Whatever you can do to try to sell it as much as you can as a 3D object that like wraps around the skull, that is your best bet. And I'm going to be doing a lot of like effects towards the end of this on the hair. Again, it's something like I can really like concentrate on and put a lot of detail in because it is the main focus of the image, is the face and the hair. Well, now it's letting me do what I want over here. Wasn't letting me do that earlier. Weird. Want the shadow from where the glasses are situated. I have this stylized, of course, that the eyelash sticks out over top of it too, so we're going to have like a little shadow area from that. Just a little bit of blurring here and there. We want to make sure, of course, that you do keep some sharp edges, because otherwise, like I said, the form will get lost and you don't want that. Like having everything blended together and smooth is just not the way things look. Like just not the way light works, so. So I kind of just like, where I feel like the light is gonna like fall off, is usually where I do like a little bit of a blur, and then I always go back in and try to carve out like where, if there's something that's overlapping it, like that particular shadow shape is still present. But again, I want to lighten up like this area, of course, because this is where I'm drawing your eyes to, so. Oops, got some areas up here. Need to kind of fix these little detail wisps that I put in. I'm gonna cut that out completely so I have some value difference. And also on this one, just a little bit. Just slice it out there. make sure there's not anywhere else I need that on. I could probably do it across these spots here, so we really have that directional. Because most of the lighting of this is like bounce lighting from the environment. Like, yeah, there is a sky, but in this particular area in Palia, there's a lot of tree cover. So I will probably be even adding an effect where there's going to be like shadow and light leak from leaves at the end of it. But again, I don't want to go overboard, so I will try to like weigh my options when I get to that to make sure that it's not something that's like too excessive. All right, let's go ahead and save that. I'm going to lower the opacity. And then I like to build it back up by duplicating the layers. And then I usually duplicate it twice and then have the final one as a linear burn versus a multiply. There we go. I think that's looking pretty good. Go ahead and save. And I think this is the last layer I'm going to work on for today, for at least for its stream. Just putting some color around these areas. Let's make this nice and saturated here around the eyes. Around the face area. Hell yeah. Alrighty. So let's see. Let's fill it with this color for. Oh, gotta invert it. Let's actually make it a little lighter before I do that. I'm gonna do that. And I'm gonna add some color variety in here in the lighting, because some of this is going to be some of the warmer color, and I want it to be like a little bit warmer around the face. So I started with a cooler color, and now I'm just adding in some warmer tones, warmer hues, like around where the face is. And then, since there is going to be some foliage and some trees, I'm going to add in a little bit of like some like greenish here and there. So the light isn't all like one specific color, really. Kind of want to change the lighting here a little bit to like more of a like a reddish. I think that'll look neat. And then lower the opacity down. Duplicate. delete that. And we'll do add glow. Turn that down to like 5. Duplicate this. Do glow dodge. And lower that opacity again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in here and fix like a lot of like the value issues that I have going on right now. So let's see, let's turn these down some more. Also right now it's looking kind of a little bit plasticky, so we're going to fix that. Go ahead and do that. Why did that not really do anything? Let's go back. There we go. I forgot to hit the button. I was like, why? I was like, why is this not doing anything? That doesn't make sense. And I'm also going to come in and I'm going to do a little bit of detail work since, you know, this is where all the details should be focused when it comes to your image. So wherever you want the audience to look at the most, should be making sure that this is the area that gets the most attention. And it helps you like oh, it's okay, Betsy. No worries, I get it. Especially since you're not like feeling well. I'll probably end up taking a nap today myself too, so never be ashamed of the need for a nap. Let's give these a little bit of a blur here and there. I also kind of want to reinforce some of these colors in here while I'm doing this. Oh. Oh, I remember how I did this. I didn't do it with that layer. I did it with a different style layer. Okay, I'll come back to that. Forgetting my own process here. Oops. I was like, why isn't that working? It's like, oh, I don't have it selected. Like a dummy. So there's going to be a lot of kind of shadows in these areas. It's got to be a bit darker where it's closer to what's blocking it. This will give me some value separation again here. There we go. Now it has like way more contrast. I'll do that with this right here too. Oops, I've got like things on the finger there. Go ahead and fix that real quick. Well, I could do that later. Let's not worry about it now. Getting distracted. ADHD's kicking in. Just focus on the task that I'm doing. Alright, this is going to be casting kind of a shadow over this whole deal here. Oops. There we go. This is also an area that not really a lot of light. Kind of like that ocular occlusion there. Again, we're trying to really sell this as like a 3D form, so give me my tool. Thank you. Jesus. is actually overlapping this a little bit, so let's make sure that we have these forms. All right, making progress. Definitely want to reinforce the shadows here from the glasses. And there is some overlap here on that. And this overlaps as well. There, and get some of this from the goggle. Just kind of light. This is behind. And the bangs kind of overlap here too. Oops. Alright, I think that's pretty good with reinforcing that part of it. Let's give it some lightning and some parts of it. A little bit around here. That might be a little too much lighting there. Maybe through here, up here, on the top of the head here. A little bit around the sides. Okay, that's better. And save that. And then I have one last little trick that I do for this part. Something that's just kind of fun to do is to add some color into the shadow areas. While there is color in shadows, you don't always have to do this. This is just, again, another artistic choice I like to do. I just think it looks neat. Let's kind of also sell that more, like there's some strands in there. Let's do that with this too. Oops. Gotta make sure I'm also looking at the big picture, not just what I'm doing in these little areas. It can get a little off track if you're too far zoomed in, so. And this is something I picked up experimenting with Carla's commission, and I think it turned out really cool in the hair, so I think it's something I might just start including in my pieces, because I think it's neat. Try not to get too sloppy with the selections here. Oops. Trying to follow the shape language I've already been using, so it's cohesive. Alright, cool. So I'm just gonna start like dropping some colors here and there. And these don't necessarily have to be colors that are in the environment. Just like whatever like kind of like speaks to me is what I'm going to be throwing in here. Just to have like a lot of variety. I think this looks really nice as like a kind of like a finishing touch when it's done. I am going to try to put some warmer colors though around the face and the eyes at least. That's probably good. Deselect, and I'm gonna go with that tiny bit of blur. And then I'll lower the opacity way the hell down. Duplicate it and do a lighten layer. There we go. So we get some like color variations in like the shadow and the hair and all that good stuff. I think it looks really cool once it's all done. All right. Almost done with this layer, and then we will be done for today. So let's do my gradient maps again. Do I want to use this, or do I want to use... Let's try this. Ooh, yeah, that looks nice. I like that. And then let's get zoom out here a bunch. And it looks like it needs to be lightened up. I don't want to give it too much. Let's go ahead and let's reset that real quick. And let's take the values maybe more this way. It's a little bit better. I can bring the darks down. I don't know. Might be a little bit too purple. Let me do some color balance here. That looks a little bit better. I think that looks okay for now. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to save it and I'm going to come back to it and look at it with fresh eyes, because I've been going for a while here and I don't want to like commit to a decision that might be a pain in the ass to fix later. So yeah, I think it looks alright so far though. So let's go ahead and put it on the screen here, what we got for today. I'm pretty happy with it so far. I think, like I said, I might have to do some things to the hair when I come back and look at it. Make some adjustments there. But other than that, I think it looks pretty good. So let me go ahead and, okay, I already saved. And let me throw you guys in the lobby here. I want to thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate it while I work on this. Shameless self-plug, I do have a VGen account here where I am taking commissions. I have a 20% discount that is going on until February 25th. I would really appreciate it if you guys would check that out. I'm really trying to get verified. I will be back again on Friday. I'm going to take a day or two off here from streaming. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. Please follow me if you like my content. Consider subscribing. That would help me out tremendously.